The grand hall of Nexus Prime buzzed with nervous energy as thousands of delegates from across the galaxy shifted in their seats. The cavernous chamber, with its soaring crystalline dome that captured the light of 3 suns, had witnessed 10 millennia of galactic governance. But never a session quite like this. The curved walls, embedded with luminescent panels displaying the emblems of 1,000 worlds, seemed to pulse with anticipation. Ambassador Kara Min stood motionless at the podium. Her ceremonial Earth uniform, a stark contrast to the exotic attire of the alien representatives surrounding her. Her dark eyes betrayed no emotion, though she had spent 15 years fighting this moment. Behind her, the small human delegation, just 12 representatives, maintained the same stoic composure. They represented the last diplomatic effort of a species that had spent 2 centuries trying to earn its place among the stars. "The Council recognizes Ambassador Min of Earth for final statements before the vote," announced the presiding chair. An ancient Altari, whose translucent skin revealed the slow pulse of multiple hearts. The words echoed through the chamber, automatically translated into the native tongues of all present. Kara stepped forward, her movements measured. At 42, she had spent more than a third of her life in these chambers, learning the labyrinthine protocols of interstellar diplomacy. The weight of 20 billion human lives rested on her shoulders, all those who had spread across 17 colonies since humanity's exodus from a dying Earth 3 centuries prior. "Esteemed members of the Galactic Council," she began, her voice steady. "For 200 years, humanity has sought to be a productive member of this alliance. We have offered innovations in adaptive agriculture that have saved billions from starvation on drought-stricken worlds. Our engineers have maintained transportation networks across the Outer Rim that other species found too hazardous or tedious to service. Our doctors have crossed genetic barriers to develop treatments for diseases that once decimated entire planetary populations." She paused, scanning the vast array of faces, tentacles, sensory clusters, and other alien appendages that constituted the leadership of the most powerful interstellar government in known space. "Yet, despite these contributions, we stand before you today, facing expulsion from the territories we have helped build, maintain, and protect. The Council cites our unpredictable nature and evolutionary predisposition toward conflict as justification. I ask you to look beyond our history to our present, to judge us not by ancient wars fought on our homeworld, but by the peace we have maintained among our colonies and the service we have provided to yours." From the upper tiers, a Veltar representative interrupted, its voice vibrating through specialized speakers. "The history of a species cannot be dismissed so easily. Ambassador, your kind evolved as predators, and that instinct remains encoded in your very cells. The stability of our 10,000-year peace cannot be risked on the rehabilitation of one volatile species." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Kara had heard these arguments countless times during years of appeals and hearings. The Galactic Council, having maintained an unprecedented era of peace, viewed humanity as an unnecessary risk, a young, unpredictable species that had nearly destroyed its own planet before reaching for the stars. "If predictability were the sole measure of value," Kara countered, "we would all be replaced by algorithms. It is our capacity for adaptation, yes, even unpredictability, that allows us to solve problems others cannot." When the Cygnus transport network failed during the gravity anomalies 50 years ago, it was human engineers who developed the workaround that saved 12 worlds from resource collapse. The presiding chair raised a limb for silence. "Your arguments have been recorded and considered across 17 hearings. Ambassador Min, the Council has deliberated for 43 standard cycles. We now move to the final vote on Resolution 873B, the removal of human settlements from Council-protected space." Kara felt her heart rate increase, but maintained her diplomatic mask. Behind her, the human delegation stood in perfect formation, a practiced tableau of dignified acceptance. Only she knew what their right hands were doing, hidden from the view of the council, each pressing a small device nestled in their palms, confirming their silent authorization. The voting commenced, holographic tallies appearing above the central floor. Each representative's decision flashed as a point of light, flowing toward one of two columns. Kara watched as the verdict materialized in glowing precision. 900 votes for expulsion. 2 against. The silence that followed seemed to stretch into infinity. Resolution 873B is passed, the presiding chair announced. The human species is hereby ordered to withdraw from all council territories within one standard solar cycle. Failure to comply will result in forced removal. Kara bowed her head slightly, a gesture of acknowledgement but not acceptance. Then, without warning, she reached into her pocket and withdrew a small crystal device. Its surface caught the light, sending prisms dancing across the chamber floor. "The human delegation recognizes the council's decision," she said, her voice now carrying a different tone, one of finality rather than pleading. "In accordance with our right to self-determination under Council Charter Article 37, I hereby activate the Exodus Protocol." She pressed the crystal, which emitted a single pulse of blue light. The presiding chair rose in alarm. "What is the meaning of this, Ambassador? Article 37 pertains to voluntary withdrawal, not to species under expulsion orders." Kara's eyes hardened. "Precisely. While you've spent 43 cycles deliberating our fate, we've spent 80 preparing for your decision. The Exodus Protocol is already in motion, a coordinated withdrawal of all human presence from council space." Murmurs of confusion spread through the chamber. "This is highly irregular," protested a Meravan representative. "Such an evacuation requires council oversight and approved exit vectors." Kara's smile was cold. "With all due respect, Counselor, you've just voted that we are no longer your concern." In that moment, 1,000 light-years away, Admiral Elena Vu stood on the bridge of the Freedom Fleet flagship, Horizon Breaker, a woman of 60, with silver-streaked hair pulled back in a severe bun. She had spent decades preparing for this day, hoping it would never come. The pulse from Nexus Prime had just reached her communications array, its message unmistakable. "Exodus confirmed," her communications officer reported. Elena nodded, her weathered face grim with determination. "Initiate Operation Homecoming. All ships, all colonies, all outposts. The vote is cast. We leave." The order rippled outward, transmitted through a network of hidden quantum relays that bypassed the Council's official communication channels. Within minutes, the signal reached every human settlement across 17 systems. On New Gaia, the largest human colony with a population of 3 million citizens who had been living in a state of prepared uncertainty for years, began the final phase of evacuation procedures. Homes that had been designed for rapid dismantling were collapsed into transport modules. Essential equipment, already prioritized and tagged, was loaded onto waiting ships. Children, who had grown up rehearsing this possibility in countless drills, gathered at designated assembly points with only their most precious possessions. Dr. Jiro Lam, head of the New Gaia Research Institute, supervised as his team secured data cores containing centuries of scientific advancement. Unlike the public evacuation, their work happened in sealed laboratories deep underground, away from the occasional council observers who had monitored the colony for decades. "Everything on the preservation list is secured," reported his assistant. "What about the Nexus interface protocols?" Dr. Lam's eyes narrowed. "Those go with us, but not in the official record. The Council never fully understood how dependent their systems have become on our maintenance algorithms. They'll discover that soon enough." As he spoke, he transferred a final set of encrypted files to a quantum storage device, no larger than his thumbnail. These contained the keys to thousands of subtle improvements humans had made to Council infrastructure over centuries, small efficiencies, workarounds, and patches that had become essential to the functioning of everything, from food distribution networks to interstellar navigation systems. "Is that ethical?" Mai asked, her voice low. "They've had 200 years to learn how their own systems work," Dr. Lamb replied. "We offered to train their engineers dozens of times. They refused, believing their automated systems were self-sufficient. We merely maintained what they ignored, and now we're taking our knowledge with us." Across council space, similar scenes unfolded on every human world and outpost. The evacuation had been rehearsed for generations, with ships, supplies, and escape routes prepared long before the final vote. Humanity had known its position was precarious from the beginning and had planned accordingly. Back on Nexus Prime, chaos erupted in the council chamber as delegates began receiving urgent communications from their worlds. "Point of order," shouted a draconian representative, rising on powerful hind legs. "Our outpost in the Cygnus Arm reports that human maintenance crews have abandoned their posts at the central transit hub. Critical systems are already showing signs of degradation." Before the presiding chair could respond, a Veltar delegate's communication panel flashed urgent warnings. "The food distribution network on 3 of our agricultural worlds has begun to malfunction. The human technicians who service the systems have departed without transition protocols." Kara Min stood impassively at the center of the growing storm. The human delegation behind her had already begun to withdraw from the chamber, their role in this final act complete. "Ambassador Min," the presiding chair's voice cut through the clamor. "What is the meaning of this coordinated abandonment of essential posts? This constitutes a direct attack on council infrastructure." Kara's response was measured. "No attack has been launched. Presiding chair, we are simply complying with your directive. Humans are removing themselves from council space. All humans, including those who have silently maintained your infrastructure for generations. If the council failed to account for this dependency in its deliberations, that is not our responsibility." In the days that followed, the full implications of humanity's departure began to manifest across council space. Systems that had operated flawlessly for centuries suddenly developed inexplicable errors. Automated processes that had been taken for granted started to fail in cascading sequences. A small group of council analysts, led by Councillor Thera of the Moravan species, began to detect patterns in the failures. Thera, who had been one of the 2 votes against expulsion, had spent decades studying human integration into council systems. "The correlation is undeniable," Thara explained to an emergency committee. The Moravan's elongated features displayed the blue coloration of deep concern, as holographic projections illustrated the spread of system failures. 97% of critical infrastructure failures are occurring in systems where humans served as maintenance personnel or consultants. "That's impossible," objected a senior Altari minister. "Our systems are designed with multiple redundancies. No single species could be so essential to their operation." Thara's reply was pointed. "It's not about the system's design, but their evolution. Our analysis indicates that over the past 2 centuries, human engineers implemented thousands of small improvements and workarounds, most undocumented in official records. These adaptations became integral to system functionality." "Why would they conceal such modifications?" demanded a Veltar representative. "They didn't," Thara countered. "Our investigation shows that humans submitted over 40,000 improvement proposals through official channels. The Council approved less than 2%, citing concerns about deviating from established protocols. The humans then implemented many changes anyway, filing them as routine maintenance rather than system modifications. As the crisis deepened, an emergency session of the full Council was convened. The majestic Grand Hall, which had witnessed the expulsion vote just weeks earlier, now hosted a very different gathering. Many delegates participated via holographic projection, unable to travel due to the growing transportation crisis. The presiding chair, looking noticeably more translucent from stress, called the session to order. We face an unprecedented emergency. Council worlds report critical shortages of essential supplies. Transportation networks are operating at 30% capacity. Food distribution systems on 42 worlds have failed completely. Can we not simply reverse engineer the human modifications? Suggested a draconian delegate. We've attempted to do so, replied the head of the Council's technical division, a silicarid whose crystalline body structure refracted light as she moved. But the humans integrated their changes so seamlessly with existing systems that isolating their contributions is proving nearly impossible. Additionally, they appear to have removed key interface protocols when they departed. In the midst of this chaos, a message arrived from Ambassador Kara Min. Rather than appear in person, she had sent a comprehensive data package that was projected above the council floor. Esteemed members of the council, her recorded image began. I provide this information not as a negotiation, but as a courtesy. Attached you will find documentation of 17,000 critical system modifications implemented by human engineers over the past 2 centuries. This represents approximately 60% of our total contributions to council infrastructure. The council chamber fell silent as the scope of humanity's invisible support became clear. Detailed schematics showed how human ingenuity had quietly overcome design flaws in everything from atmospheric processors to quantum communication networks. These modifications were necessitated by the council's resistance to formal system upgrades. Kara's recording continued. When our proposals were rejected, we found ourselves in an ethical dilemma: allow systems to fail, endangering billions, or implement unofficial improvements during scheduled maintenance. We chose the latter. Before the council could fully process this revelation, the central security systems were unexpectedly breached. The holographic projectors flickered, and then displayed the image of Admiral Elena Vu standing on the bridge of her command ship. Counselors, she began without preamble. While Ambassador Min offers you partial documentation as a courtesy, I am here to ensure you understand the full scope of your dependence. My engineers have compiled a more comprehensive assessment of what you are about to lose. New projections materialized, showing the deterioration curves of major council systems over the next 5 years. The projections were devastating. Complete collapse of food production on 30% of council worlds. Transportation network failure affecting 60% of trade routes. Life support system degradation on 17 artificial habitats housing billions. How did you access this chamber's secure projection system? Demanded the head of council security, a Tuluvan whose protective exoskeleton had darkened in alarm. Elena's smile was cold. The same way we've accessed and maintained thousands of your systems for 2 centuries, because you couldn't be bothered to understand how they truly worked. The council erupted in outrage, but the presiding chair raised all 4 limbs for silence. Admiral Vu, if your intention is to blackmail the council into reversing its decision. Blackmail implies a demand, Elena interrupted. We are making none. The exodus is already 90% complete. This is merely an exit interview. Counselor Thera moved to the center of the chamber, blue markings now pulsing with emotional intensity. Can we not negotiate a transition period? Surely your people do not wish to see billions suffer? We offered transition training 67 times over 2 centuries. Elena replied. The council declined 67 times, believing your systems were self-sufficient. You have the documentation now. I suggest you begin learning quickly. With that, her image disappeared, leaving the council in stunned silence. In the following weeks, desperate attempts were made to reverse the expulsion order. But the legal framework of the 10,000-year-old council proved too rigid. By council law, once a species was expelled, it could not be readmitted without a unanimous vote, an impossibility given the fragmented politics that had emerged in the wake of the crisis. More practically, the human exodus had proceeded with remarkable efficiency. The carefully planned withdrawal had emptied colonies, outposts, and space stations of human presence with military precision. The few council delegates who proposed forcing humans to return were quickly silenced by the logistical impossibility of such an endeavor. Humanity had withdrawn to uncharted regions beyond council space, following routes prepared over decades. On the final day of the mandated withdrawal period, Ambassador Kara Min returned to Nexus Prime to formally conclude humanity's relationship with the Galactic Council. She walked alone through the grand corridors, now dimmed by power conservation measures. Emergency lighting cast long shadows as she made her way to the much smaller chamber where the diminished council awaited. Only 57 delegates were physically present, the others unable to travel due to the escalating transportation crisis. The presiding chair, now so translucent that the outline of internal organs was clearly visible, acknowledged her with a formal gesture. Ambassador Min, the Council recognizes that the human species has fully complied with Resolution 873B. All registered human settlements have been evacuated from Council space within the mandated time frame. Kara nodded. I come to formally confirm our departure and to deliver humanity's final communication to the Galactic Council. She placed a small crystal on the central pedestal, similar to the one she had used to initiate the Exodus, but red rather than blue. This contains the location of 300 emergency supply caches we have left in critical systems. Each contains sufficient resources to sustain affected populations for approximately 1 standard year. This should provide time for your engineers to develop alternative solutions to the most pressing infrastructure failures. Murmurs of surprise rippled through the chamber. Why would you offer aid after such a calculated withdrawal? Asked the Veltar representative, suspicion evident in its vibrating tones. Because unlike the Council, we do not measure a species' worth by its predictability, but by its actions, Kara replied. We leave these supplies not for your governing body, which rejected us, but for the billions of innocent beings who never voted on our expulsion. Councillor Thara approached the pedestal. And what does humanity ask in return for this assistance? Nothing, Kara said simply. Our paths diverge here. The Council has made its choice, and we have made ours. As she turned to leave, the presiding chair called out, Where will your species go? What territories lie beyond Council space that could support your population? Kara paused at the chamber entrance. That information is no longer the Council's concern. I will say only this. While you were voting to remove us, we were building. What we could not find, we created. Where we were not welcome, we made our own place. With those words, she departed, the last human to walk the halls of Nexus Prime. As Ambassador Min's ship cleared the space dock, Admiral Elena Vu's fleet appeared at the edge of the system, a vast armada of ships carrying the entirety of human presence from Council space. They formed a massive, gleaming procession that stretched beyond visual range, their engines creating a river of light against the darkness. For one brief moment, they hung in space, visible to every observatory and sensor array on Nexus Prime, a silent demonstration of what the Council had rejected. Then, in perfect synchronization, they activated their drive systems and disappeared into the depths of uncharted space, following coordinates known only to humanity. They left behind a crystal message buoy programmed to activate after their departure. When Council technicians accessed it, they found only 7 words. Too late to fix it. Goodbye, Council. 5 years later, Councillor Thera stood alone in the observation dome of what remained of Nexus Prime. Once the gleaming heart of galactic governance, the station now operated on minimal power, its grand chambers largely abandoned as the Council struggled to maintain even basic functions. The Veltar worlds had lost 60% of their food production capacity, leading to the first famines in 8,000 years. The Altari trade networks had collapsed, isolating dozens of worlds that depended on interstellar commerce. The Draconians, who had been among the most vocal supporters of human expulsion, now faced extinction on 3 colony worlds, where life support systems had failed beyond repair. Thara had spent these years leading the desperate effort to reverse engineer human modifications and develop new solutions. Progress had been made, but far too slowly to prevent the unraveling of the once mighty council. A young aide approached hesitantly. "Counselor, the last of Ambassador Min's supply caches has been distributed. The final message has been retrieved." Thara took the small data crystal, turning it over in elongated fingers. "Play it." A holographic image of Cora Min appeared, older than when she had left. Her hair now streaked with gray, her eyes harder. She wore an unfamiliar uniform bearing symbols the Council's databases could not identify. "Counselor Thara," the recording began. "By the time you receive this, 5 years will have passed since our departure. I record this message specifically for you, as one of the 2 who voted against our expulsion. I hope you have found use for the supplies we left behind." The hologram shifted, showing vast structures being built in what appeared to be a distant star system. Enormous habitats took shape, along with fleets of ships unlike any the Council had ever developed. "What you are witnessing is New Horizon, the first of our independent systems beyond Council space. We have established 7 such systems now, each self-sufficient and growing. Our population has increased by 20%, and our technological development has accelerated without Council restrictions." The image returned to Kara's face. "I tell you this not to boast, but to confirm what you perhaps already suspected. We never needed the Council. It was the Council that needed us, though it refused to acknowledge this truth until it was too late." Thara's blue markings darkened with emotion. "This will be our final communication with former Council space," Kara continued. "The border beacons we've established will prevent accidental contact between our territories. Should the Council ever stabilize and wish to establish diplomatic relations with the human alliance in the future, these beacons contain protocols for initiating contact." She paused, her expression softening slightly. "For whatever it's worth, Counselor, I believe you understood what your colleagues did not. That diversity of thought, even unpredictable thought, strengthens rather than threatens civilization. I hope that lesson has not come at too great a cost." The hologram flickered and vanished, leaving Thara alone with the weight of what might have been. From the observation dome, Thara could see the dimmed lights of the once great station, a microcosm of the fading Council itself. Somewhere beyond the visible stars, humanity was building a new future, while the oldest civilization in known space withered from its own inflexibility. "Too late to fix it," Thara whispered, echoing the human's parting message. Too late indeed. On the other side of the border beacons, in the command center of New Horizon, Admiral Elena Vu stood beside Ambassador Kara Min, watching as the final message was transmitted to Council space. Both women had aged since their departure, their faces bearing the lines of stress and determination that came with rebuilding a civilization from scratch. "Do you think they'll ever understand what they lost?" Elena asked. Kara's gaze remained fixed on the stellar map, where human territories glowed with vibrant energy against the backdrop of unexplored space. "Some, like Thara, already do. The rest? Perhaps in another 1,000 years, if they survive that long." "And us? Where will we be in 1,000 years?" Kara finally smiled, a genuine expression that reached her eyes for the first time in decades. "That, Admiral, is precisely the kind of unpredictable question that got us expelled in the first place." Beyond the viewing port, the sprawling expanse of New Horizon stretched across the horizon, a testament to human resilience and adaptability. Construction ships moved like luminous insects around massive structures that would house generations yet unborn. Research vessels departed for unexplored regions, carrying the curiosity and drive that had defined humanity since it first looked to the stars. The border gate to Council space closed with a final transmission confirmation, sealing the division between past and future. Humanity had moved on, leaving behind a failing empire that had rejected its most valuable asset, the capacity for change. In the empty corridors of Nexus Prime, the echoes of that lesson would resonate for millennia to come. A cautionary tale of how even the mightiest civilization could fall when it feared the very innovation that had once made it great. Too late to fix it. Too late to change. Too late to understand that stability without adaptation was merely the prelude to extinction. The Council had made its choice, and humanity had made its own. The universe, vast and indifferent, would judge which path led to survival.